get the top off. So here we are, priming a canvas instead of being lazy and buying a store-bought one that's pre-primed. So paying more to do extra work, but it's really worth it. The store-bought ones, a lot of times they'll yellow over time and they'll crack because they're low quality, student quality, and people don't know that. The other advantage of priming your own canvas is that you can have it as textured or do as many coats as you want to. And I always make sure that I use a heavy double weave cotton canvas. I use a 12 ounce. And the significance of the double weave is that if you need to, you can unstretch it, take it off a stretcher bar, and you can re-stretch it essentially if you need to. Usually you want to avoid doing that more than necessary because it does wear and tear on it every time you do, but it at least gives you the potential. And you could do as little as really one coat of gesso. I've done as many as 8 to 10 coats before with sanding in between, depending on what type of finish you want. I've done certain things where I want it almost glass smooth. Currently though, I probably do about 3 to 4 coats sanding in between after the starting after the second coat, and I usually use a heavier grit sandpaper, something in the 120-160 range. I don't really care for using the really fine ones like the 400s or anything like that. And right now I'm actually in the process of picking out pieces of hair that are getting into the gesso, and I'm making sure that I'm getting deeply into the weaves. And what I'll end up doing is I'll end up doing a cross-hatching pattern, making sure that I really get it to absorb. And then I'll go back and make sure all my strokes are going in the same direction. And I use a lot of water with the gesso for the purpose of not having it clump up or get really thick. And that just gives it a really nice finish to it. And one of my favorite tools actually, which I do not have on me right now, is an X-Acto blade because it allows me to pull out tiny hairs. But I can otherwise sand those out later. And gessoing isn't even really a necessity for painting. A lot of times you can stain a canvas, just put pigment directly on the canvas. But most of the time I will go through the gessoing process. And another one of my favorite things is black gesso. And black gesso has some really nice, unique qualities. And it's also it's much thicker and has much more coverage. And with the black gesso, you can usually get away with doing far fewer coats, so its longevity is much greater. But I can assure you that by gessoing your pieces yourself, that they're going to be probably significantly more archival and last a lot longer. The brand of gesso that I love to use is Nova Color. It's very cheap. The professional grade, it's factory direct, so essentially get wholesale rates for it, and a lot cheaper than things like Liquitex, which are much more expensive. And I also make sure that I take the time to gesso the edges of all my pieces, which I'll be doing after I get this very first coat of gesso on this piece. But good things take time, and I think it's worth going through the process and not just doing it to do it, but knowing why you're doing it and savoring every moment of it, because it makes those beginning processes special and part of the relationship of creating the painting. And right now all I'm doing is spreading my gesso across. The first coat usually takes the longest because you have to fill in all the valleys in the canvas. And because it's a heavier canvas, those valleys are a little deeper than they are on the student grade canvases or the pre-bought. So now that I've covered the whole thing, I will go back and gently make sure that I have all my brush strokes going in the same direction. And by using a lot of water, doing very thin coats, doing a lot of coats, I'll be able to make this thing almost glass smooth so that you won't even be able to tell that it was done with the brush. So take that, repeat times 8, and then finally I'll be ready to start a painting.